I love this, what it is it's infrared. If you look how dark it is, and then look here, how bright that is. Also from the tail lights too, but it is infrared. We've got a lot of fog out. We're in a little area of Mesquite that's kind of off the map a little bit. There's a Walmart, of course. It's not too off the map. They got a Walmart, but I believe it's Balk Springs. So we're in Balk Springs, Texas, which is in pretty much in Mesquite, Texas. And that was my last drop for the night. But I love this. If you look here, you can see the light. This is kind of a bad example because there's light everywhere. But when you put it in reverse, the infrared actually goes into effect. So you can see it clear as day when you're backing up. So the infrared will kick in right here. You can see the difference in the light. It's almost like, looks like daylight nearly. But you have the street lamps, so you don't get to see it as good, but it's very bright. And you can see very clearly. It's very helpful at night to have that. And Kia does a really good job at getting some of the best technology for just something very simple as backing up, which is actually important because you can see lower than looking up here. That's a pretty high area, but newer cars are all going to have that. Eventually it'll probably be required. I don't know, like 10 or 15 years, they'll be like a requirement on cars. But this is an amazing amount of fog, and we're going to be heading back towards through Dallas and then eventually back into Irving. But I wanted to show you, this is a nice little area. It kind of reminds me a little bit of some parts of Maine and some parts of the country, because these little tiny street lamps right here that you don't see very often. These are really old street lamps in Dallas. If you look at the street lamps here, it's going to go away. It's going to go into more of the bright, well, not the brighter, but the taller street lamps, which are more modern. These are probably a little older here, but there's a whole stretch. There's a lot of color. I really like the reflection of the light here. But there's the fog too has really come in. This is in I guess this is May. So a lot of rain has come in Texas right now. We've had a lot of rain. So all this fog is from the after effects of a lot of that rain that we've been getting. This is very common in Maine too. I've got a lot of footage on my page of quite a bit of dense fog. This goes on for quite a bit of time. There is a chain of street lamps that are coming up soon that I wanted to get on film, on digital video coming up here. That's a great amount of fog right here. I think this car has fog lamps. I'm not for sure. I think it may have them. I'll have to check later, but I think it does, because I'm seeing through a lot of this. So there's going to be a string of street lamps that look really neat. It's an older look of Dallas. These might be some of the older street lamps here that I was looking at earlier. No, it's coming up because the bulbs are a little bit different. They're more of a white fluorescent bulb, and there's a string of them, which reminds me of when you're leaving Vermont and you're going into Maine. There's a very long stretch of road that's these small little street lamps that looks like Germany, the very clean part of Maine that's nothing but pine trees and just nature. There's not a single piece of trash on the ground. This is not as clean looking as those parts of Maine, but it is kind of reminds me from the other direction going towards Balk Springs. It kind of reminds me a little bit of some sections of Maine. Just a lot of country. But there are really nice areas in Texas, really remote areas. There's even some towns where there are only 40 people. near Rice, Texas, and things like that, way out in the middle of nowhere. Some of these little tiny towns, there's like nobody there. Maybe like one sheriff, you know, or one grocery store, one gas station, and that's it. And that's all over Texas like that. There's a lot of remote places. But when you get in the Dallas area, that's when you're getting to like 2 to 3 million people. Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is leaving where Terrell is. I believe Jamie Foxx is from Terrell. That sign right there says Terrell. One of the Diesel's going in front of. Yeah. Thank you, Diesel. Appreciate that. But anyway, that's Terrell. The exit for 6B going to Terrell. And we're headed back towards Dallas, leaving Mesquite. And that was the fog. For some reason, it was heavily in Bulk Springs, Texas. Or Bulk Springs, Texas. Also, kind of like what I've noticed too about driving around Dallas, because I've been doing a lot of driving around Dallas, and I rarely ever talk in any of these episodes, or any of these scenes that I post on YouTube. I rarely ever talk, but there's a way to Texarkana right down that way. But what I've noticed is some of these small little towns that I get pushed into on rides and deliveries and drop-offs and things like that, especially alongside of Dallas, do remind me of Stephen King's 11/22/63. I think that was when JF Kennedy was assassinated. And I had gone through Dealy Plaza quite a bit over the last few weeks, looking at Dealy Plaza and coming up with theories about whether or not if Oswald actually did it. I think from Stephen King's point of view, Oswald was the lone gunman. But I have some theories, and I've been talking to a playwright from Brooklyn named Matthew Paul Almost. His play came through, So Goes the Ghost of Mexico in Undermain. And we were talking about Oswald and Dealy Plaza and how exciting that is to look at, and how privileged also that I am that I get to pass by Dealy Plaza so much. And I am thinking about possibly in the future writing a book, not only about Dealy Plaza, but about Oswald, and then possibly maybe even a one-man show called The Ghost of Oswald, which I think I'm also going to have a second character in it with Lyndon B Johnson. So it'd be Oswald and Lyndon B Johnson, whether I play both of them or bring in another character. If it's a one-man show, of course, I'd have to play both of them. But it's about the ghost of both of these two, Lyndon B Johnson and the ghost of Lee Harvey Oswald. And it's in his defense. So Oswald is kind of at trial in heaven. And he begins to give his... it's almost like a dissertation, or more like an opening speech at a court trial. And his ghost is there, and he's in heaven before God, and the audience is from the perspective of God. So you would be sitting in the jury seat in heaven, and he begins to explain how he's a patsy, because those were the last things that Oswald said, is that he was a patsy. So even if he did do it, even if Oswald was the lone gunsman, I think that in the trial in heaven, at his trial, I think that he would probably be in his own defense saying, look, I'm still a patsy, even to God. And he would explain his reasons why. And I think part of him will explain that he really was a patsy. Then towards the end, I think he may confess if he did it or not, if he fired a shot, because he might have fired the next shot. But I'm a believer, and I hate to call it the conspiracy, but I like to call it a choreographed presidential assassination. So a planned assassination of John F. Kennedy in 63, I believe. Or was it 62? I'll have to do my history research on that. 11/22/63 or 11/22/62. I have to find out the exact date on that. But anyway, I think what happened was eventually it was either the mob or it was KGB or CIA or related to Cuba. So a government planned assassination, whether it would be our own country too, possibly with Lyndon B Johnson. Whether he planned it or not, I don't know for sure. I can't come up with a theory yet on who was behind the conspiracy to assassinate John F. Kennedy. But if it was, my major proof, my major argument, and this would be Oswald's major argument too, was what are the chances that the presidential motorcade with John F. Kennedy happened just to pass right there before the Texas School Book Depository building? What are the chances? What is the coincidence there that all of a sudden, just out of convenience, this presidential caravan with JFK and the governor happened to just go right by where Oswald, the lone shooter, happened to conveniently work? Conveniently work. So he conveniently worked in the Texas School Book Depository building. And here's this presidential caravan, this presidential motorcade, going right by him in a perfect sniper position, which he was hit directly from behind in the neck when he was holding his neck this way and went forward. But the back and to the left shot, which they also, I don't know, they call it a magic bullet or whatever caused him to go backwards. I think that shot was from it was a long sniper shot from either CIA, KGB, or Cuba, possibly even the mob. I think they were even good enough to pull it off. But it was a long shot that came from the railroad on the other distance, far beyond the grassy knoll. And I think that shot even went under the bridge, or somehow they were high enough. And I'd have to do the research, which I'm going to do, from that railroad track that's near Dealy Plaza, not too far. That would be a perfect escape for either the CIA or for KGB or Cuba or whoever it was, or mob, whoever it was that killed him. And they would have got into the railroad car, and they would signal the conductor either through CB or the radio to take the train off so they could cleanly escape. If Oswald was there, which he was seen at the book depository building being very calm, he was probably only there as a patsy. Supposedly, he went off and shot a police officer, then went into a movie theater, and Oswald was discovered at the movie theater, blocks, quite a few distance from Dealy Plaza, which people don't think he made that track. But he was discovered because he was witnessing going in the cinema moments after the police officer was killed, which that could have been by the mob too, and they could have known that Oswald's pattern for that day was to go into that movie theater, and that's where they arrest him, in the movie theater, which I think is an odd arrest, especially in a dark movie theater where people, hey, okay, oh, that person right there is obviously Oswald. That would have taken a long time to even find him in the movie theater anyway. But they clearly knew exactly where he was, went in there. It sounds like he was a patsy, and he was being honest when he was interviewed on television, saying, I'm just a patsy. So I think that he actually was probably innocent. I used to not think this theory. I used to think I was for the lone gunman. I thought he did it. But looking at Dealy Plaza and thinking the coincidence, and also none of that motorcade pattern or routine of where those cars would have gone would have been known but by Secret Service of the president. None of that would have been released to the public. But they knew that there would be a parade, and they knew probably the direction at the last moment. It was probably released so people would know where he would be, because there were people waiting for him to go down in front of the school book depository building. But explain this to me. What are the odds that Oswald would have got the job at the book depository building, the Texas Book Depository building, and successfully landed that job, was able to work there, and the perfect place to assassinate JFK, which he never even knew for sure if he was even going to go by that building? That's the proof. There was no proof that he could prophesize and know the future, that he would have gone into that route right by the book depository building and not even have a bubble over the car either. There was no proof of that released. At least the mob choreographed everything. Or KGB, which I doubt they could have done it. The CIA possibly could have. But those are my theories on Dealy Plaza. Anyway, thank you.